24 debate. We're discussing the UN announcement that the death toll in Syria had jumped 20% in the last 10 days, 5,000 killed and counting. We're talking about it with Vincent Floriani, spokesperson for the French Foreign Ministry here in Paris. Also with us, Sadek Salem, a Syrian activist based here in the French capital. From Strasbourg, in the European Parliament, Marietta Schaake, Dutch MEP, spokesperson on Syrian issues for the Liberals Alliance. And Joshua Landis, who's SyriaComment.com, a great source of news about Syria. And joining us for this second part, U.S. State Department spokesperson Catherine Van de Vet. Thank you for being with us. Catherine, we have news out of Washington. The U.S. urging Russia to be willing to join the Security Council on Action on Syria. It's coming at a time when relations between Moscow and Washington aren't at their best. Can Russia still come into the fold, as it were, the way it did over Libya? Or is it, how do you explain the fact that the Russians at this point are saying no to everything?
I can't begin to explain the Russian position, but I do think it is time for the world community to act. As we said yesterday, there's a human rights crisis in Syria. That's evident from Navi Pillai's report. People are dying every day. 850 people died in November. Hundreds of people died in the last few days. And it's time for the world community to act. It's time for the UN Security Council to take concrete steps to stop this. That's what we've said all along, and that's what we will continue to say.
Vincent Floriani, are we seeing any daylight in the negotiations at the Security Council? Are the Russians budging at all?
Yes, they are for the moment. We are waiting for the next Monday, on the 19th of December. There will be a new vote in the General Assembly, a resolution on Syria. We hope to have even more support for the resolution. We hope with this support, the international community support to condemn what the Syrian regime is doing in Syria, with the Arab League support also to act against the Syrian regime. We hope that the Russians will move and accept to.
Have they given any signs that?
So far, not. I mean, I'm not encouraged by what I've heard from Mr. Lavrov on this.
All right. A couple of comments, by the way, on the France 24 debate Facebook page. Samhar, who writes, who's in favor of the Western powers bypassing the Security Council if need be, and saying, when are we going to see real interest in saving human lives from those nations that proclaim that they defend human rights? It looks like they use this propaganda when they want to invade a country as a way to accomplish their desires and hidden agendas. This is reality, unfortunately. Emmanuel, who's against bypassing the Security Council, saying, why don't you question if the international community should also bypass the U.S. vetoes condemning Israel for war crimes, ethnic cleansing, etc. over the last 60 years. And Lorenzo says, of course Russia and China have their financial interests at heart with respect to any interventions via the UN towards Syria, so perhaps other states, including regional neighbors, ought to do something outside of the UN now before the Syrian regime kills off all those remaining tens of thousands of protesters that are still left. So an array of views there. So there's Plan A, which is do it within the Security Council. Plan B, do it outside the Security Council. And, well, effectively, Plan C, which many say is look towards Turkey. Now, tension in the border area is very high indeed. Turkish television, by the way, showing images of a bullet-ridden truck returning from a delivery from Saudi Arabia and the drivers escaping after running a checkpoint of armed men in civilian clothes.
While we were driving to the Civil-Gozu border crossing in Syria, they blocked the road 15 kilometers ahead of the border. They waved their hands to force us to stop. When we slowed down, they opened the road, and we tried to escape. That's when they opened fire.
Joshua Landis, as we mentioned in part one, that the killing has increased a lot over the 10 days. Has Turkey's position changed over the last few weeks?
Turkey, not substantially. Turkey has raised the rhetorical bar as has every country, France, the United States, the Arab League. Everybody is condemning Syria. Nobody wants to get into war with Syria. And Turkey, it doesn't make sense for Turkey to go to war against Syria. And that's what it would be if it had a no-fly zone. It's begun to, help the Free Syrian Army. It's controlling access to the head of the Free Syrian Army. But to begin to arm it, create a no-fly zone, this is an act of war. And Turkey's certainly not going to do it without UN support and without NATO backing. It's a very costly thing. Syria will try to hurt Turkey by animating the Kurds. So there's not a lot in it for Turkey. Of course, Turkey wants to spread democracy. It's stood on the side of human rights and it's taken a stand. But to actually go to war in Syria when there really isn't a consolidated Syrian opposition that has a hierarchy and a leadership would be foolhardy.
Let me ask you, Vincent Floriani, how close are the contacts these days between Paris and Ankara? How much are you been in discussion over what's going on inside of Syria?
French Minister Alain Juppé was recently in Turkey and talked with his counterpart. We are in permanent contact with the Arab League, with Turkey, with all major players on this. May I say a word on the different scenario you discuss? Plan A, France's permanent, constant position is that we don't act, we don't take sanctions or military action without a full backing of the Security Council under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. And in Syria, we are not talking about military intervention. Plan B, which is regional approach, it's already there. The Arab League is taking action. Turkey, the European Union, and others will, we hope. Now there's also Plan D, which is within Syria. What can we do with the opposition? There's already the Syrian National Council. They are becoming more and more influential. We are encouraging them to be more uniting, to be more representative. I think they can play a role as well.
All right, for the time being divided, but as you say, you're hopeful that perhaps they can become more united. Marietta Shaka, what do you see as the best way forward for the outside world?
Well, it would, of course, be the best to have a real international mandate through the UN Security Council, but we cannot wait for the UN to start functioning properly. We still have Syria as a member of the Human Rights Council of UNESCO, another UN organization, which clearly shows that the effective mechanisms are not always working as they should. Syria has no place in such a Human Rights Council in UNESCO. And I do think that indeed we are already working with partners like Turkey, and we are in dialogue with the Arab League countries about what actions we can take. Everybody is very cautious because our first and foremost priority is to make sure that the people in Syria do not get killed or see more violence against them. And we are very cautious not to see an escalation in the region or an escalation which would hurt the people more than they are already being hurt by the regime of Bashar al-Assad. But it still doesn't mean that we have to sit by and watch. We are looking at targeted measures. We are discussing the options. And I think it is important that we stay in touch with Russia on this important subject, because they are clearly going to carefully be weighing their interests in the region. And if they see all members of the Arab League being very critical vis-à-vis the Assad regime, their interest may shift. And this could create a new momentum to at least address the concerns that we have. And in the meantime, as Europeans, together with Turkey, we have to look at the targeted measures we can take. We've talked about targeted economic sanctions, diplomatic sanctions, and a ban of the export from the EU and EU member states of technologies which are used to track down people, to identify their locations, to look at the internet and mobile phone traffic. These are very serious elements of this conflict, this information war, and I believe that digital weapons trade from Europe should stop immediately, and that we should make sure that we stand by the people of Syria. Tomorrow, the European Parliament will award the Sakharov Prize for freedom of thought to the people of the Arab world for defying fear and standing up for more human rights opportunities. And among them are 2 Syrians. And I think it is very important that we don't only award a prize for free thinkers, but that we stand by them and actually defend their human rights. And so the EU is committed to that. There's no easy answer or no golden formula to end this, but we are committed and we're looking for options that will be effective.
Let me ask Catherine van der Weijt, what do you see as the likelihood right now that that Turkey rather, may impose at least a buffer zone inside the border area of Syria?
I know that all those options are under discussion. I don't know of any concrete action right now. I would say with reference to plans A, B, and C that, like my colleague said, we're working on all those fronts. We are pressing in the Security Council. We very much support the Arab League initiative. We would urge monitors to be allowed into Syria, which would help deter the violence and protect the civilians. And we likewise have been meeting with the opposition and trying to support them in formulating a vision that they can offer to all Syrians.
Let me also ask you, Salim Sadek, where do you see the most hope right now when you look at the outside world?
We're looking because we have been talking about Turkey and France and US and everything, and we didn't talk about the Syrian. We have started a national strike. Tomorrow is the second. I wouldn't say that Bashar al-Assad will run away with the strike, but it will weaken him. You see, so I do see hope in Syria, and I do see hope in United Nations. I prefer the scenario of United Nations, intervention of United Nations. I'm not counting on Turkey itself or on France. We are talking about international law. I'm calling Luis Moreno Ocampo. So it's a way also we have to pass by him. We have to pass by his bureau.
By the International Criminal Court.
Yeah, the International Court, of course. But we didn't. Sorry.
No,
we didn't actually. We wasn't talking about Syria. We wasn't talking about steps. Tomorrow is the second step of the national strike. We have called for it, and it was successful for about 80% of the hoped areas. So in some areas it's even 100%. In the south of Syria, it's not a usual thing. It's not a data that we can loop.
A couple of quick points before we go. First of all, the spillover effect. You mentioned it in Turkey. Let's talk for a second about Lebanon. Last week's roadside bomb in South Lebanon injured 5 French UN peacekeepers with the finger squarely pointed at Hezbollah, whose leader lives in Damascus.
We have strong reason to believe these attacks came from Syria.
So are you saying that Syria uses Hezbollah for these kind of attacks?
Absolutely. Hezbollah is its armed wing. We have once again called on the Lebanese government to ensure the safety of peacekeepers in the country. They're on a peace mission, not a combat one. They're there to intervene to prevent clashes.
Now, Hezbollah firmly denies this, and so, by the way, do the Syrians themselves.
The Foreign Ministry firmly denied any relation to Syria with the explosion that targeted UNIFIL forces in southern Lebanon last Friday. They come within the context of the fabricated French accusations which falsify facts and publish lies about Syria. It seems that the French Foreign Minister believes the theory of conspiracy, which he attributes to others.
Vincent Floriani, fabricated French accusations there, the word from Syrian television. What evidence do we have that Hezbollah was indeed behind it?
Well, on Sunday evening, French Foreign Minister Alain Juppé answered a question about, whether the attack was coming from Syria, and he said that we have serious doubts. There are precedents that we have serious doubts about this. We don't have any concrete proof for the moment, but it's a possibility. The Lebanese authorities said they will conduct a full investigation. Everyone must take his responsibilities on this.
Joshua Landis, the Hezbollah had been keeping a rather low profile so far. Is that changing?
Well, I don't know. I can't imagine that Hezbollah is going to do very much. Hezbollah is very constrained in what it can actually do to assist Syria. There have been constant rumors that Iran and Hezbollah are sending troops to help Syrian army, but there is no evidence of that. You know, obviously, this just underlines the fact that trying to move the Syrian government is going to be very difficult on the part of the West. We saw Bashar al-Assad give an interview with Barbara Walters, ABC, recently. He denied that the Syrian government is killing innocent people. He tried to put forward a face of calm. He denied what was going on. He called the UN a joke. And basically what he was trying to say is that he believes in his rectitude and he's not going to go anywhere. And that these economic measures and others are not going to dissuade him from pursuing the course that he's pursuing today. And that's the situation we're in. People who believe that Bashar al-Assad is going to resign or this government is going to crumble, I think this is hopeful thinking. The Syrian army has stayed together. How that is going to change is not obvious today. Many of the opposition have said that Bashar al-Assad will fall within the 3 months. Others in Europe are beginning to say the same thing. But you know, for an observer who's looking at the situation on the ground, very difficult to see how things are going to change in the near future.
All right, so the tipping point hasn't come yet. I know that Sadiq Salem has been talking about that general strike that starts tomorrow. Yeah. We're out of time for now, but I want to thank you for joining us. I also want to thank Vincent Floriani. I want to thank from Strasbourg Marietta Schaake from the European Parliament for being with us, Catherine Van de Weet from London, and Joshua Landis from the University of Oklahoma. And thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate. Stay with us. Coming up next, it's time for business, and that is hosted by Marcus Carlson.